Welcome back to the Self-Care Sermon Podcast. I'm your host, Coco, and this is your sanctuary where we discuss self-love and self-care practices meant to amplify your authentic radiance. After working in the beauty industry for over 20 years as a certified makeup artist and licensed esthetician, and later becoming certified as an Ayurvedic health instructor, I take a holistic view on self-care. I want to empower you to release the pressures surrounding the endless and unfulfilling search of how to be outwardly beautiful, and instead I want to inspire you to create a life that is full of beauty. We are officially 1 year into the Self-Care Sermon Podcast. I absolutely cannot believe that I'm saying those words. I released the trailer last year on August 8th, which was the day after my grandmother passed. And it's wild to me that it's been a year. This last year has genuinely been one of the most consistently personally challenging in my life. I have been brought to new depths within myself and only recently have started to recognize the life-altering portal that I've been traveling through. I am reflecting today both on how much I've grown through this podcast in the last year and also honoring how much further along I wish I was. I had imagined different things for my 1 year episode, and today I'm just tenderly loving myself through the feelings of wishing I was able to have executed some of those 1 year celebratory plans for my podcast and that disappointment, and also genuinely being so grateful to myself for showing up every single week for 52 weeks. Whether I was recording in a hotel closet or re-recording an entire episode that didn't save, I have shown up. And I am absolutely looking forward to what's to come and having some of those goals and plans come to fruition in the next year. Again, from the bottom of my heart, I so deeply thank you all for being a part of this journey alongside me. I'm grateful and I'm honored that you're here, and my promise to you remains the same. I will continue to show up openly and honestly and always hope to be just a nourishing sanctuary, and that listening to my podcast can feel like an act of self-care for all of you. Now, today's episode is definitely one of my favorites that I have ever recorded. I am joined by Mary Lisa Emery, who is a psychic, an intuitive healer, and divine feminine embodiment coach. She guides women to reclaim their power, their pleasure, and their spiritual gifts through nervous system healing, energy mastery, and her signature journey, Holy Harlot Awakening Program. This beautiful episode covers so many juicy topics, including how to reclaim your own holy harlot and the healing power of pleasure, the importance of communion in our healing work and how to maintain energetic boundaries, owning our righteous rage, viewing our womb as a cauldron, and the ingredients to the ultimate beauty elixir. Spoiler alert, you already have access to all of them right now for free. I am so appreciative of you sharing your time with me and with Mary Lisa and allowing us to be a part of your day. Thank you so much for listening. All right, Mary Lisa, thank you so much for joining today. Just how we connected, I feel like was what feels like so random, but we had so many things in common and so many synchronicities that it was just a no-brainer to record. And I'm so glad you were just like, without hesitation, so ready to be here and be a part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Coco. It was very random and you just were so welcoming and kind. And then I heard your podcast and I heard your voice. I didn't see a video and I was like, I feel so grounded with this woman.
Mm.
So safe, so nourished. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I there's so many different directions we can take this, but you are an intuitive healer.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you talk about is the ways in which stress impacts our beauty, our body and our beauty. And I've heard you talk about how feelings get stored in our face.
Yeah.
And first, I would love for you to just talk about what an intuitive healer is
Yeah.
and how you got into this path. And then we can segue into some of those specifics about what you see with how that shows up in our faces.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Basically all my favorite things to talk about. So an intuitive healer, it's always hard to put a word on it, but basically I feel things for people, which used to not be a skill and was in fact a large pain point growing up, which I know a lot of people can relate to, probably women and that watch your or listen to your podcast. But when I started to take my counseling skills and turn them into, almost like spiritual counseling sessions. I learned how to navigate other people's emotions with them, hold space for them so that they can tap into their issues, problems, traumas, dramas, and transmute them. So I see things, feel things, and channel things in conjunction with people. Yeah. And then, as far as my favorite thing to talk about is emotions getting stored inside the body. And I think one of the first books I read on this was The Body Keeps the Score.
I knew that's exactly what you were going to say. I'm like, I know this is what's about to come out of her mouth. I cannot even tell you truly how many people I talked to about that book. And at this very moment, it's sitting on my bedside table because it's a game changer.
It is. And to be honest, I didn't read the whole book. I think I read the first few chapters and it sparked something so dramatic inside me that because I have a very scientific brain, grew up in a masculine world, really wanted to prove myself, really wanted to be successful and smart. And so this, I think he's Dutch, this Dutch scientist, therapist, to put something so beautiful in the language of science really kicked it off for me. I was like, oh,
Mm,
there's something explaining what I'm feeling and have noticed. It was like a permission slip,
mm,
you
yeah.
know?
Mm,
And then, so yeah, that gave me like a scientific framework for something I could not explain logically. And then I started researching biofield tuning, got into some of Eileen McCusick's courses, and there's just a lot of research out there when you take a dive that tells us that the body acts like a file folder. So imagine you're in a heightened state of stress and your body says, wow, she's going to experience a lot of grief, but we need to reserve this energy to get her out of this mess. That's what the nervous system is for. It's really
mhm,
quite beautiful. But if we then don't come back into a relaxed nervous system enough, then it will just stay stored in those file folders labeled for a later date. So
mm,
when we have an emotion, it releases chemicals and hormones, and it's to be felt. It gets released through the fascia, through the blood, right? It has a direction, it has a motion. So if we don't process or feel those feelings, they those chemicals get stuck in the fascia, stuck in the body, and then they create adhesions over time. So imagine that you have all of these aches, pains, these places you constantly injure over and over again, or you constantly get bronchitis or yeast infections. What it is trapped hormones, informational processes that need to be emotively released.
I mean, when you think about that and you think about how we live in today's world and how much stress people are under, and it's become our consistent state almost of these high stress levels and high cortisol levels. What does that say about how we as human beings are living in a day to day and like what that's doing to our bodies?
Wow, such a potent question, right? Because we have the sympathetic nervous system to get us out of trouble, right? It's like we're in a car accident. We need to be able to filter all of our energy and attention to getting out of this mess. However, we're not being chased by predators anymore, and so we've developed this over sense of thought. And when we're in the fight, flight, overstressed nervous system over and over again, worrying about the email that we sent, worrying about our friends who might have taken what we said out of context, worrying about if mom is sick, what that does is all of those thoughts are just creating a cyclical pattern of like addiction to cortisol and adrenaline. So even if we wanted to step out of that, it's not people's fault. They are literally biochemically addicted to those patterns. They become neurological grooves so deep in our system. And then our reticular activating system, which that we process far too much information, so we've conditioned our brain to only look for that which already confirms what we need, which is stress.
Yeah.
So there can be a million beautiful things happening at this moment in this room, but if I'm stressed, I will only be able to process more stressed information.
You know, it's so interesting because as you're saying that, I'm having the thought of this being just kind of the common state of human beings these days and talking about what this does to our bodies on a physical level. And I'm thinking about, chronic illness and disease and all of these things that show up in our world. And what I find so fascinating is we have more tools and science and medical systems in place to help us. The science is all here and the medical advances are all here to help us through what we're experiencing and feeling, whether it's like pain management or stress management. And yet we need it more than ever because we're living in this chronic state. And I'm also thinking about that in terms of beauty, where when we think back to, beauty standards from decades past, and I've been in the beauty industry for a long time and I've seen the rise of injectables and surgery and lasers and all of these things that we do. And what I find really interesting again is it's like we have all of these advancements that have come in the plastic surgery field or in the cosmetics field while these stress levels are simultaneously rising. And it's like, we need them more because we're holding more and it's showing more in our skin and our body and our face. And so I just find it really interesting because it's almost like this supply and demand that you're kind of watching happen. It's like the more stressed we are and the more chronic this is and the more we're in this hyper regulated state and it's showing in our bodies and our aches and our pains and our illnesses and our skin and our wrinkles and our tension and all of these things, that demand is being met because we have more of these options at our fingertips. So we're doing more injectables and we're doing more of these topical fixes.
Yeah.
And more and more and more, and like buying the more expensive skincare creams and doing the more advanced procedures and surgeries. And we're in this race to constantly try and like fix the symptom, and we're advancing the ways in which we can treat the symptom. But really, when you just go back to the basics, it's
Mhm.
if you can just treat the root cause, like when we can just slow down enough to recognize where this is coming from and what this is, and treat our response and our nervous system response, then some of those things that we're doing to treat the symptom would just be like we would recognize how much we don't actually need them.
Yeah. I think you're touching on so many things right now, like our society, and I know that the United States drives a lot of global society as well, but it's like capitalism,
Mhm.
it's patriarchy, it's individualistic society. All of these things that make us externalize our worth,
Mm.
all of these things that keep us trying to chase a carrot that's just in front of us. And I am, I have for sure participated,
Yeah.
like I think it's just in our DNA now.
Mhm.
And it takes something much more radical to take a step out of that, right? Because if all of this is making us chase and hustle and age faster and, continue to externalize how we feel about ourselves based on outcomes and looks and stuff like that, but really the medicine is relaxation and pleasure,
Mhm.
people don't believe it
Yeah.
because we've been so, I don't like to use the word brainwashed, right? But we've been so conditioned to as you said, get the thing that changes the symptom.
Mhm.
It's very Western medicine for sure.
Yeah. And what I think is important to note that I wrote down that you said is you mentioned that you have a very like analytical, logical,
Mhm.
more masculine energy mindset.
Mhm.
And I think that it's really important to talk about that because, to your point, I think these conversations and discussions, a lot of times people will dismiss as woo. Or I heard somebody on a podcast this morning and they were having a similar conversation. And one of the gals was saying she was getting a bunch of hate comments about toxic feminism. And that's what people are labeling conversations like these. And I think it's important to note that it's not an either or, it's a both and. And having conversations like that where it's dismissing these as woo or weak or toxic feminism or whatever it is contributing to the problem. And this isn't a male female woo science
It's not
conversation.
us
It's
versus them.
right. It's a holistic human experience. And you're talking about things on a very scientific level. I mean, this is not woo. And thankfully, there's a lot more research now to talk about and back up the benefits of meditation and relaxation and nervous system regulation and all of these tools. But when you are working with people in your community and having these conversations, what do you think the biggest challenge is for people to kind of accept this for themselves?
Oh man. First, I do want to touch on this idea of like toxic femininity, toxic masculine. I mean, it's on both sides, right? Like,
Yeah.
and second of all, that's not even the conversation that our community needs to be having.
Hmm.
My my mind loves facts, but I've had to retrain it. I've had to step deeper into my feminine energy, and I still have my lovely get it done masculine energy, right? We all have this wonderful blend that gets things where we feel comfortable.
Yeah.
However, there's an imbalance here in masculine energy, and we need both to be symbiotic as a culture and as a world. I have men that come into my comments all the time being like, well, what if you're a man? Because I speak directly to women. And I'm like, yeah, heal your feminine.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it with us. Do it with us, you know? But the thing, back to your question, the hardest thing to accept as women come into this paradigm is that they're passively addicted to the pain and to the circumstances.
Mm.
So when we set up a life, and let's say my life isn't going the way I want it to go, my relationships aren't going the way I want it to go, I'm not making the money I want, blah, 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 right? We take a look and we're like, holy crap, it's so not what I thought this would be. But when you come in and you're like, radical responsibility, right? This is your life. There's no fault to lay at your feet, and there's definitely no fault to lay at anyone else's feet. That's very painful because what it does is it pokes the ego bear. And
Yeah.
if people are really attached to their thoughts, their sense of self, trying to help them unwind that and find the deeper, peaceful, more joyful self is biochemically very confronting. So
Mm-hmm.
we're not just working on like the emotional aspects, like when our cells become consistently washed in a certain hormone, they will not allow in they'll be looking for that hormone. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm introducing into your brain more oxytocin, I'm like, all you have to do is like find pleasure when you're drinking your coffee. You're like, fuck off,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
need my stress. And you don't even know. 95% of us, of our cognitive behavior is subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that we're making our own decisions, but you're making 95% of your decisions and behaviors based on programming from when you were 3 years old.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is dive into that subconscious, help you unpattern so that when your subconscious does feed you thoughts, it's based on I am worthy, I love myself, I have a love to extend, I find, like we get to repattern that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's confronting people.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot on the podcast because that's really what has changed my own journey so much, was understanding truly that our lives are so driven by our subconscious mind, which most of that program was embedded when we were children.
Yeah.
And that's how we operate our lives. So I talk about that quite a lot. And two things came up when you were saying that. And one is, we'll choose a familiar pain over an unfamiliar comfort
Yeah.
because we're going to choose what we know, even if it's something that's maybe not good for us or is not serving us. But because it's familiar, it's what we know, it's what our body knows. That's what we're going to be inclined to choose
Because your brain
over,
knows that outcome, but
right?
it doesn't, like you said, the comfort, it doesn't know that there's comfort on that side of
Right.
the outcome. It takes a risk, right?
Right. That's exactly it. And that was the second point I was going to say is, I'm going to butcher the saying, but it's something along the lines of you can only expand to the level of the safety of your nervous system.
Mhm.
And so it's like your nervous system doesn't feel safe. For example, like money is a really easy example to look at. If you've been making the same salary or close to for your career, even if you get a raise or have an opportunity for a job that pays better, if you do not have a regulated nervous system, if you don't feel safe with that amount of money, with receiving and holding it and keeping it or investing it, you're not going to be able to expand to that level. You're going to sabotage it in some way
Mhm.
because you can't expand to the level at which your nervous system doesn't feel safe. And that is why this is so important to do this nervous system work. And I love that you brought up the feminine and masculine because next week's episode will be, I've done a divine feminine episode, and next week I'm going to talk about the sacred masculine. And so I
Mm,
love that you brought that
juicy.
up, and it's so juicy. It's so good. And it is reminding me of another piece of your work. And, you talk about reclaiming the feminine and that is not just a job for humans born with a uterus,
Yeah.
people who identify as women. This is a human experience. We both have both. And I want to talk about, you have this title on your Instagram of the Holy Harlot.
Mhm.
And so, kind of segueing into that, I would love to hear what the Holy Harlot means to you and how she came about and how this plays out in your work.
Yeah. I've been doing intuitive healing for about 10 years now, and I work with a healing master specifically, and some other, Isis. But I was seeing that probably three women of my clients kept returning with the same problem. And one of my core injuries is that I attach my worth to healing. So
Mm.
I'm like, I need to figure out a different way, because I can keep offering the medicine, but if they don't integrate it, right, like then they'll keep coming back. The goal of my work is not to continually see people, right?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
people are their own healers, their own magicians, and they know best. But anyways, so went to Bali, had a time, a beautiful time, a difficult time, and I hear that a lot with people. She awakens things in you, and so that's when the channeling with Isis started, and I was led to this idea that pleasure heals 40 times faster than repetition or traditional medicine. And there's some research supporting that in neuroscience, But anyways, so I heard the word holy harlot, and I was like, nope, not gonna put myself out there with that, because, I was raised religious, and I'm not anymore. My parents aren't like super attached to it, but like I come from a Catholic background, an Italian family, and there are some very strong identification points with that. So I also didn't want to offend anyone. Good girl came up really strong when I started channeling for Holy Harlot. Anyways, got the channeled courses, did a lot of research into the science behind how pleasure can heal us faster, what's actually going on in our body and our hormones and our fascia that makes that possible. And then I completely went through the process myself. They put me through hell in order to come out the other side. Like I basically worked the program for myself, and it was a crash course in how to crack open all of these presentations of Mary Lisa that was attaching her worth to outcome, that was engaged in hustle culture, disguised as like, the spiritual healer. Like there were so many layers to unravel around myself. And it happened. The women I work with in the program right now, they're coming from all sorts of backgrounds. But basically, if you are stuck working in a space, in a world, in a paradigm where you feel like you're putting in X amount of effort and you're not seeing that result, it's because that paradigm was not designed for you.
Mm.
I truly believe that women's bodies were designed to run differently.
Yeah.
And I even kind of internally cringe saying that out loud, because I'm like, I know that'll ruffle some feathers, but it really doesn't matter. Like, whatever path you choose for yourself, do it with honor, right? But
Yes.
when a woman settles back into her body, starts relaxing herself, decentering the capitalistic paradigms, the patriarchal paradigms, she actually, and turns herself back on, she actually has more to give. She is happier. It's like filling your cup up so much that the magnetism can't help
Mhm.
but start to flow. And so that's what Holy Harlot is. It's divine channeled codes, it's nervous system repatterning, it's psychic protection and development, and then it's pleasure, orgasm, seduction, all of these things that we've deemed kind of scary and like dark feminine, but it's really, I think the woman seduces the world into goodness.
Mm.
We've gone kind of far from that. And I
Yeah.
only know that from lived actual experience. Like, I am a recovering control freak. You know, I had a
Yeah.
major eating disorder. I was a
Mm.
hustler, and I've had to completely, like, so many ego deaths
Yeah.
just to get back into the sacredness of my being.
Mm.
And I want to, I mean, I want to hit people over the head with it, but I'll settle for like gently offering.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just keep getting chills over and over again every time. Yeah. Through so many things that you said, I just repeatedly kept getting chills. I feel like we just need to sit with that yumminess for a moment because so many things you said there I know will resonate with so many of my listeners and myself and the women that I know and the people in my life. There are so many different things that you said that I know people can identify with.
Mhm.
And for myself, as you and I talked about, again, I was also raised Catholic
Mhm.
and very much had the good girl persona.
Yeah.
And it was like, be a good girl at all costs. And the cost was always myself.
Yes.
And that programming was so ingrained that when you start to fall apart, it is that cracking open that you said is the best way to put it. And the complete unraveling of life and self and mental health and physical health, at least in my experience, and everything just feels like it's crumbling around you.
Yeah.
For me, I had this
Terrifying.
moment. It's completely terrifying. And also, the first instinct is I wasn't a good enough girl. It's
I
not
failed somewhere.
exactly like I did something wrong because in being a good girl, why am I crumbling? Why am I breaking? Isn't this supposed to be the way that it is? And now I'm failing. Like somehow I've let everybody down still. It's so twisted and backwards because even in that complete breaking, you think that you've done something wrong because you couldn't handle,
Yeah.
oh, I couldn't handle being a good girl.
Well, you
And
did
so,
everything they said.
yeah. And so then again, it's like to your point of ego deaths, it's so many you're falling apart, right? Because that's not sustainable. That's not what we're meant to do. That's not why we're put here on this earth is to be completely subservient to everybody else and not honor ourselves. And so we've given away everything. We have felt the burnout and exhaustion and depletion that happens when you completely empty your cup and then the cup itself breaks and you still punish yourself because you think that you should have been able to somehow sustain yourself through it. And so it's like, it's the death of everything around you, the ego death of the things that fall apart through that. And also for me, it was this ego death of the Catholic good girl. It was grieving her and mourning her first from a place of I thought I failed her. And then from a place of, well, where did this persona even come from? Like, where did that archetype even come from? And why did I cling to it so blindly? I never questioned anything. I never considered why. And that's what I've seen from so many women is we don't pause long enough to even number one, figure out who the self is that we are acting from.
Mm.
And then also why we believe that this is how it has to be. And so that is when you go through those dark nights of the soul, and it's the portal, it's the pathway to
You
just
get
figuring out
shoved.
who self is.
Hmm.
And this theme has been coming up so much. And so, again, it's like one of the synchronicities of you and I connecting when we did. A theme that's been coming up for me, I would say over the past, it's been about a year now, and I'm really actively working through this in my own life, is this message of sensuality. And truly, it's sensuality, it's the senses. What are we feeling? What
Hmm.
are we sensing in our body? And it's brought up a lot for me. And I've teased this, unintentionally teased it through a few different episodes on the podcast, because it is something that I'm actively working through. And so once I've integrated and digested and processed some of this myself, then I'll speak more about it. But in reclaiming sensuality, senses, slowing down, really experiencing the fullness of life as we're meant to, it has also reignited and re-brought up some of the physical trauma that I've gone through, which has been a very interesting experience for me. And I'm wondering if you, either personally or with some of the women that you've worked with, can relate to, as you are reclaiming the feminine and sensuality and sexuality, that it can also trigger some of these physical wounds, because you can't only feel the good and the pleasure without your body also saying, hey, there's some of this stuff that's still in our cells and still stored in our body in the fascia, to the point that we started this conversation with, that still needs to be felt and processed. Have you experienced that in your
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of what the intuitive healing space is, right? It's like, and that's why I think working with someone, or even having a person to talk this stuff out loud with, be it a best friend, a mentor, whatever, like we heal in communion. We do a lot of healing work by ourselves, but like the communion of healing is so valuable for someone else to hold the riverbanks while you go searching through the muddy river, so that you don't get lost, because ego will really try to either hold you face down in it and be like, look how painful everything is, or it'll be like, don't even touch it. So I have experienced that, and a lot of people, when I finally plug in a tuning fork to their electromagnetic field, tears. They're like,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. I'm like, first of all, we don't say sorry in this space.
Yeah.
Second of all, you're doing what we intended for you to do. There's an emotion there. It needs to be liberated. The tears
Mhm.
are the nervous system purging. That's what laughter is. That's what yawning is. Like your body intuitively knows how to move things through. But what we find, especially with women, is that we have been convinced that we need to live in this like masculine,
Mhm.
energetic world where things are analytical, logic driven, and black and white. It pulls us so far out of our body, out of our womb space, that we have no energy for digestion. Our pelvic floor starts to become hypertonic, which means tight, but tight, weak,
Mhm.
right? Tight, strained. I love explain. They're like, oh, a tight, pussy. No, we're talking about exhausted, like it will snap. You know,
Mhm.
you have no sensation in an overexhausted muscle. So when we finally come back into the body, especially the yoni, the womb space, and the belly, right? It's like knock, knock, knock. We're uncomfortable with a lot down here. That's why a
Mhm.
lot of people are chest breathers too. Because when you finally sink in, you're like, whoa, 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 I'm having anxiety. Yes, because anxiety is living there. It's trying to get your attention. So, what I
Mhm.
always tell people is whatever symptom you're having in your body, it's not your body fighting you. It's knocking at your door, being like, please pay attention. There's this injury, there's this energy, and I need to purge it. So, you can either sink in and allow it to liberate, or you can continue to ignore until it gets louder and louder and louder. Autoimmune, cancer,
Yeah.
dysfunction. So when I first started channeling for Holy Harlot, like my first assignment from Isis was to like sit with my womb space for 5 minutes a day.
Mm.
For a week straight, I had so much righteous rage pour out of me. Friends would call and they'd be like, "How are you?" "I'm really fucking mad. Do you want to hear about it?" There was no reason for me to be angry externally, but I knew. I was like, oh shit, like we are purging some ancestral stuff from all the times when I absorbed energy from a lover, from all the times I held space for people when they didn't hold space for me. There is so, like, our womb is a cauldron. It is a direct portal to that which is unfathomable. She does so much for us and we barely notice her.
Mm.
When I started doing that, my bloat, which has been the bane of my existence for, how old am I? 34. For 27 years, disappeared within
Mm.
a month when I just started being like, "Hey girl, what's up? How you feeling today?" Right? So there's a lot.
I, yeah, I cannot tell you the righteous rage. And again, I've teased this on a few of the more recent episodes because that is what I keep talking about is this is actively what I'm going through is the righteous rage. And it really, like I said, it's been about a year and the first few months were, oh, what is this? What is this that's coming up in my healing work? And again, this is going to be an episode down the line where I talk about this more, but I am in this righteous rage so intimately and again just allowing it to flow through, like letting this be here
Yeah.
and letting it process and letting it move. But it is, and I've said this multiple times, and this has come up in therapy and it's come up in my women's groups, and it is righteous rage for myself. Exactly what you said. It is my ancestors' rage that is coming through. It is rage from trauma and things that have happened to my body. It is not just my rage of, things that are, you said, like your friend calls and how are you? And you're like, I'm fucking pissed. It's like, yes. And this is so deep and it's so feral and it's so real.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what I'm working through. And to your point with the bloat, it's through this season, it's actually been a little bit comical because through this season, the bloat has been so real.
Mm-hmm.
And also now what I'm noticing in myself is I'm like holding it. I'm like holding my womb. I'm holding my belly when I'm feeling really bloated and just like, I love you. Like feel this. Like what is this? And just sort of sitting and loving, actively like holding my belly and loving her
Yeah.
and letting her just be full and whatever she needs to be right now. And it has slowly just been getting better on its own. And I think that that piece of it is also so healing because we are, again, taught in society to do the exact opposite of what our women's intuitive bodies need to do. Suck it in, hold it in, cinch it in, all of these things. And it's like, no, 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 that's not how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be compressing our womb space and our belly. Like we are supposed to feel the fullness of our femininity and
She's an oracle.
yeah, this
That's saying
power.
something.
Yeah, this just sacred power within us that has been suppressed. And the other thing that I'll say that I really resonated with is that power of community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so important. And I was at a retreat a couple of weeks ago now, a women's retreat, and am going through a really wild, intense season in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had booked this women's retreat months ago. And of course, spirit knows, you know, there's always a divine plan in order, especially if you can just surrender and trust. And I mean, this came at the most perfect time. And I was kind of just, the way that I described it afterwards was I kind of went into it a little bit numb. There's so much going on in my life right now that I really was a bit disconnected, even through all of the work and practices that I do. And I went into this women's retreat and I kind of entered into this temple, and it was almost instantaneous of the tears starting to fall. And it was so intensely powerful. Again, it's something that I'll talk about at some point in the future once I've had a little bit more time to process and integrate and sort of sit with the experience more intimately myself. But what I shared with the women who hosted it about a week ago, after I had some time to process, was through that experience and being in community with other women, what I realized was in this death and rebirth and in this righteous rage and in this reclamation of my femininity and my power, what I really needed was to fully let go. And I couldn't do that by myself. And the way that I described it to these women who hosted was, you were my midwives, is how I felt. Really like midwives carrying me through this portal where I could just feel and express and let my body, we did breath work and womb breathing, and it was unreal. And so just speaking to your point about the power of community and how we need women to hold us through this time. And sure, can there be men supporting us through this? Certainly, absolutely. But women supporting women through this journey, I think, is such an important piece of it, calling each other home. And I think that's so beautiful in the work that you're doing. And if there's anything you want to say to that, please do. And also, it brings up another thought of, in doing this work, you yourself, and I'm thinking about me as an empath and somebody who's highly sensitive, I think something else to note when holding space for other women, and you said this at the very, very beginning, you know, you hold space for, and you do this healing work in conjunction with, that was the language that you used. The importance of the distinction between being able to support women in community, you get where I'm going, but also not losing yourself, especially for those of us who are empathic or highly sensitive. How can you navigate and being able to be that community and support and maybe a midwife for somebody without absorbing that powerful, potent energy that somebody might be processing?
Yeah, such a life-changing question, and a life-changing integration for people. But first, I just want to reflect to you. Thank you for honoring the season that you're in. I'm in the same season. Like, I was Inanna for the past 2 months. Like, I literally got dragged through every gate of hell, and with our tools, right? It's like there's something so human about letting yourself be disintegrated.
Yep.
About
That was, just to interrupt you for one moment, that was that was what the retreat was about, was the descent and ascent of Inanna and like this whole journey in portal. So I'm like, the synchronicities continue. So please.
I mean, and the only thing that brought me out of that, or that continues to allow me to show up and pretend to be human for these, hours, is other women, you know? And not everyone can be that space holder for us. Not everyone is meant to be that space holder for us. But there is something so fucking radical about allowing ourselves to be human. If we over spiritualize things, if we sanitize ourselves, we are missing the goddamn point. So thank you. And I totally relate. And I'm sure a lot of women will find medicine in that. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're healers, and like we also struggle and we also show up, right?
Yeah. It's all.
So yeah. As far as the what was the other question? We were
How do you navigate being an
oh
intuitive healer? Like you're going through it,
mhm.
you're experiencing it yourself firsthand and going through this portal, and you are also an intuitive healer helping other women. So, how do you navigate both of those energies and both being able to kind of step into and out of your own experience and then being able to safely hold a safe container for somebody else to process without you then absorbing more?
When I was a counselor, I had like when I was younger, that was my what I got my master's in, blah blah blah. I had no energetic boundaries. Like I
Mm,
went home and I thought about these people and I moaned over these people and like I inserted myself into their life, their energy, which was not okay.
mhm,
Um, Cut to I'm now practicing Reiki a few years later, and I was putting my hands on people, journeying into the astral with them, and taking back their stuff.
mm.
So I was a healer and like
So
and
cute.
and still absorbing other people's crap. At that point, I still had not learned energetic hygiene.
Mm,
Now, years later, it's this idea, and I had this long conversation with a friend yesterday on the phone about the difference between empathy, my problem with the word empathy,
mm,
and like how to engage safely as empaths, right?
mm.
Because especially millennials and Gen Xers, like universe threw a bunch of us empaths in there, right? And we're all like drowning in all the emotion. But being the riverbank to someone's river is the
Mm,
goal. If I'm seeing a friend drowning, I am not going to jump in with them and then drown us both. But the goal is to throw them a lifeline. This is their experience. Getting down with someone is a beautiful process, but like to want to heal that person and insert our own energy into the situation is actually a form of a wound,
mhm,
right? It's like, am I important to you? Did I do this for you? Am I valuable?
mhm,
And that was really hard for me to learn. And I think that now when someone, my whole goal is to like be this container.
mhm,
And sometimes I take very few client. I take probably a max two right now a day. And I
mhm,
just hold this container, I reflect things to them. And then the rest of my day, I'm like laying in my clover. I'm like talking with friend, like I'm doing psychic grounding. I'm intuitively moving my hips to continue to flesh out other people's energy. But it's not my job to heal other people. It's my job to reflect the light so that they can see it within themselves and choose it.
mm. So good, so true. I talked a lot. We did a boundaries series towards the start of the year, and that was such a revelation for me. And I think that you articulated it so well. You know, it doesn't mean that you need to jump in and drown with them. It means I can throw you a life raft. I'm here, I'm available, I can help support you in this situation without taking myself down, and how empowering that is for that other person. And I'm still working through this in my own life of just allowing people the fullness of their experience, knowing that the pain points and the challenging seasons of my life have been my greatest teachers. And so knowing that I don't need to save somebody from them, from their own, when this could be the portal to their growth and expansion, but being able to just safely hold space from a full cup. I love what you said about, I take two clients a day, and then it's very much cleansing your own energy field and tending to yourself and refilling your cup. And to another point that we talked about, it's like that's so counterintuitive to the hyper masculine hustle, grind, fill your schedule, fill your days culture that we live in. And I just want to honor you for that and you being able to set that boundary because it does make you that much better of a healer to be able to be a whole person and navigate your own boundaries and allows you to just show up with so much more presence and care and love and compassion and bringing that really full circle to just, yeah, and honor you in that. And that really is what we're talking about when you're taking a step back and asking what's true for you and what's right for you and what's right for your body. And then when you have that awareness, honoring it, even though there might be another intuitive healer in your town who can see 6 clients a day. It's like getting out of that mindset and just getting to know yourself and honoring what's right for you and honoring the season that you're in. So I just think that's so important to speak to. And
Yeah.
the work that you're doing is so necessary. Is there anything as we're wrapping up here? I'm looking at my notes too, that you feel that we haven't touched on that you want to unpack more, you want to speak to?
I think just kind of bringing it full circle to the beauty aspect and
Mm.
like how our nervous system is the direct agent to that. And I think you and I are both talking about the same kind of beauty where it's glow, it's an internal youth, it's the health of skin, it's the hydration of the fascia, and beauty as a vibration, as a spiritual context, like it's art, right? I can look at someone and be like, I see their beauty. Someone can look at me and be like, I see her. Can we do that for ourselves? So that's the kind of beauty I think you and I are talking about, right? Is like the art piece that we are, ever changing, ever dynamic, ever in honor. And there are a lot of tension patterns that get held in the face. The face is a microcosm of the whole body, and our body is the subconscious mind. And I can tell you all the places in my face where I'm like, I wish I could fix that. I wish I could fix that, blah, blah, blah. But like, what's the point? What I do want to say is that when I look at someone's face or my face and I see the tension patterns, it just directs me to their heart. I'm like, what are they holding on to? Right? So if we think of the face as the chakra system, with the root ending down at the jaw and the crown up at the top of the hairline, we can see where people are holding tension in their fascia based on the microcosm of the face, right? And realistically, if you're in a sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, for such a long sustained time, biologically your body is using up all of your energy to stay on alert. You've got no energy for repair, for digestion, for glow, for fun, for pleasure. But when you can start to relax your system, which it does take practice, do it. Find something that works for you. Listen to me or Coco, just find something that you find even slightly enjoyable. And what you'll start to notice is in a month or two, you'll be releasing more oxytocin, more serotonin, and more dopamine, which is the beauty elixir. It rejuvenates the skin. It allows your body to relax and start to plump back up. Like you literally, when people say like, oh, she must have just had sex, she's glowing. Yeah, she just released the beauty cocktail over and over and over again. We can do that, not with just sex. We can do that with intention, like finding the joy, the pleasure around us in the daily aspects of our life. Pleasure is everywhere, and it will dramatically affect our nervous system, the way we look, and how we present.
The number of times I've gotten chills in this episode, I wish there was like a little button I could push every time, like a little sparkle
Yeah,
button. Oh my gosh, Mary Lisa, this was so good. Again, it's like the universe always guides us to the people, in our lives. And again, it was seemingly so random when you and I connected. And then it's like, we have a conversation like this where it's so obvious and resonant and such an important conversation to be having, especially with the world the way that it is right now. And so I just, again, really want to honor you for the work that you're doing, for the work that you're doing for yourself, for the work that you're doing for other women, and for claiming the Holy Harlot and saying yes to the call. And it's been an honor to share this space with you and have such a delicious conversation with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for keeping the door open for me to step in. I think you're offering something so valuable, and in a space of groundedness and safety. Like, that's the first thing I look for, right? Is it safe to speak my mind? Do I feel comfortable that this person will reflect the most beautiful, kind things about me? And that's what I immediately knew about you. And so I'm getting emotional. Just thank you.
Me
Thank
too.
you for holding the space. Yeah.
That means so much. Thank you. As always, I am so grateful for your presence with me, and I hope that my offering through this podcast is a nourishing act of self-care for each of you. Take what you need, share what you loved, and leave the rest. If you feel like offering a small gesture of kindness to yourself in return, you can always rate and review the podcast. And remember to subscribe so that you're first to be notified when I release new weekly episodes. You can also find me on Instagram at The Self-Care Sermon. I look forward to talking to you again soon. With love, Coco.